You know, even though Metal Gear Solid 5 literally goes bigger with everything that it does in comparison to Snake Eater, whether that be the amount of weapons, whether that be the size of the world, whether that be the intensity or amount of enemies or crazy elements in combat encounters. Like, you guys remember how Snake Eater could handle a lot of combat, but even in its best released version, which is the HD PS3 version, it still does this weird thing where it goes into slow motion when you're in too heavy of combat, and I'm guessing it does this in order to alleviate system requirements and keep the game running. But if you push Snake Eater, it'll show the fact that it's really not meant to be too chaotic of a game. Metal Gear Solid 5 definitely does not have this issue. However, when you play Snake Eater in comparison to Metal Gear Solid 5, it still feels better. It feels dense. It feels focused. It feels deliberate in its design. There is not one point in Snake Eater where you feel aimless, where you feel like you don't really know where to go, and where you don't feel like you don't understand the characters or why they're doing the things that they're doing. At least not in a unintentional sense, because Snake Eater has the whole mystery with the boss. But for the longest time, people would hail Metal Gear Solid 5 as still really far up there with Metal Gear games, despite its flaws, because of its control scheme. Taking a look at some of these trailers for Snake Eater, or Metal Gear Delta as it's being called, you can start to see that with the control scheme of Metal Gear Solid 5 added into Snake Eater, this kind of claim to fame isn't gonna last a lot longer. You see, before it even comes out, I have the feeling that Snake Eater Remake, or Metal Gear Delta, is going to be much more fun to play than Metal Gear Solid 5. And in order to talk about why, we have to talk about another game series. I don't think I like Tears of the Kingdom. I mean, there's things I like about it, the music, aesthetics, and features carried over from Breath of the Wild. But I get tired when I play it. The building and combining mechanics, the emphasis on physics instead of the elements, and the world being so much bigger feels fatiguing. Like, there was one time where I stumbled across a guy who told me to check out the cave at the bottom of the hill. Thing is, I was in an area with tons of hills, and every single one of them had multiple caves. This got me thinking, is Tears of the Kingdom too open? Then I played Echoes of Wisdom. Aww. And I found my answer, yes. Echoes is still an open world Zelda game based around manipulating your environment to build and fight your way to victory. Rather than gluing a rock and a stick, you create projections of sandbox elements in the world. Defeated enemies can become minions, a table becomes a climbing tool. Every element of the world comes under your control. You create your own Halo-esque battlefield in real time, or traverse by mixing and matching world elements. In this sense, I think Echoes is a better sequel to Breath of the Wild than Tears of the Kingdom. You learn how to manipulate and play with the world itself, rather than having to build your own fun. It's like the difference between Halo Infinite's Forge and Far Cry 4's map editor. Halo Infinite gives you absolute control but needs you to do AI pathing, set piece coding, and you really have to put in the effort to define how the experience will be played. In theory, this sounds amazing, but in reality, you get very exhausted, as what should be a cool tool to create custom Halo experiences starts to feel like a make the game yourself middle finger from the developers. Far Cry 4 is much more restrictive. The aesthetics will always be Far Cry 4. The enemy AI will look and sound and behave in the standard 2010s Far Cry fashion. The game does not ever try to lead you on to believe that you are not playing Far Cry 4. But within these parameters, I can learn to create unique experiences, not by coding them by scratch, but instead by manipulating known elements, key behaviors, and quirks to create whatever I want. It's like writing a novel from scratch versus doing an ad-lib. By setting strict parameters, it's easier to express creativity within the context of the game, whether it's making a map, but one that's undeniably Far Cry, even if it's in a chill liminal space. Manipulating and playing with the world, but through its elements. Or manipulating every element of the game, but through the pre-established rules of its sandbox. Halo CE is fun. Its sandbox is perhaps the tightest I've ever experienced. Even at its worst, it feels deliberate. The limitations of the original Xbox force the game to be built up of these vast canyon hallways. So to keep the game fun, devs had to have focused on the core gameplay loop and engaging design rather than scale. It's because of this that I think remakes are so popular. You see, when a new game comes out, it's all about washing away the hallway canyons to show how much bigger and better games are. A remake of an older game doesn't follow this framework. Instead, a self-imposed leash is put on, and devs are forced to take the tech of today and go apeshit in those old hallway canyons. That's why Snake Eater Remake is gonna be more focused and feel more dense than MGSV. Silent Hill 2 Remake retains its atmosphere and cranks the gameplay quality of life improvements to 11. But my favorite remake is easily the Dead Space remake. A peeling system that reinvigorates the way enemies and weapons interact, a fully connected ship packed with things to discover and do, and the addition of a real-time event system that keeps backtracking and replays fresh, with set-piece and enemy randomization. All of this is possible because this game takes place on a ship, not a whole planet. Remakes get a lot of flack, but they have proved that new games could benefit from the restrictions of older design mentalities, and Echoes of Wisdom does this. I can't stress enough just how much better it is than Tears of the Kingdom. You know, thinking about this kind of stuff and really playing Tears of the Kingdom and comparing it to Echoes of Wisdom, and then looking at remakes, especially like Resident Evil 4, that is the ultimate like hallway canyon like third-person shooter game that's just everyone's experienced it. But like, what are some of the games that you grew up with, or hell, what are some of the newer games that you play now that exhibit this whole idea of the hallway canyon? Honestly, like, if you can even think about a game that has levels that aren't built as hallway canyons, let me know. And no, games that take place on islands do not count. Anyways, this has been Pliskin, and I'll see you guys on the next video.
This is Solid Snake. Hey, subscribe to Pliskin Boy. God damn it.
You heard him.